The alien child ignored everyone and ran to me. The queen said, "My son has selected." Tall, shimmering towers reflected the morning rays, their surfaces alive with delicate patterns that shifted as if the buildings themselves were breathing. Humans had traveled far to reach this place, crossing countless star systems to attend what was being called the most important diplomatic gathering in the galaxy. Among the visiting delegates was Ethan Vero, a young human envoy from Earth. His heart beat with both excitement and nervousness as he stepped onto the polished glass platform that led to the central chamber of the Xyrian palace. The platform seemed to hover above the city, and below, strange alien gardens stretched endlessly, filled with plants that glowed faintly in colors no human had names for. Ethan had seen alien species before, but none like the ones in the palace. They were tall, short, winged, and scaled. Some had translucent skin that revealed the rhythm of their beating hearts, while others moved with a fluid grace, as if walking through water even on solid ground. Every species had come to witness the heir of Xyrian, a child said to possess extraordinary intelligence and intuition beyond any known being. The chamber itself was vast, a dome of light and sound that seemed alive. At its center, the child waited, standing on a raised platform of crystal that reflected his form 1,000 times over. He was small but radiated authority. His skin shimmered with soft silver patterns, and his eyes, a deep violet, scanned the room with quiet curiosity. Around him, dozens of alien delegates whispered among themselves, each waiting for the moment the child would select his companion. Ethan moved carefully, feeling the weight of the gazes from every corner of the chamber. He had been trained for diplomacy, negotiation, and even crisis management, but nothing had prepared him for the raw energy that filled the air. Every creature in the room seemed alive with anticipation. The child's gaze, sharp and intelligent, was like a magnet, drawing the attention of everyone present. Then it happened. One by one, the child ignored the noble delegates, the politicians, and the renowned scientists. He looked at them briefly and turned away as if their presence did not matter. Gasps and whispers filled the chamber. The queen herself, a tall figure adorned in flowing robes of deep blue and silver, watched in silence. Her hands rested gently on the arms of the throne, her expression calm but her eyes filled with something between surprise and recognition. Ethan felt a sudden tug in his chest. It was not physical, yet he knew somehow that the child's attention was turning toward him. Slowly, the boy walked down from the crystal platform, his small feet making no sound on the polished surface. Every eye followed him, every being leaning forward in anticipation. And then the impossible happened. The child ran. Not with clumsy steps, but with a light, almost floating motion. He crossed the chamber, ignoring everyone else, moving straight toward Ethan. Murmurs turned into astonished exclamations. The delegates whispered urgently to each other, trying to understand what they were witnessing. No one had ever seen the heir behave like this. Ethan froze for a moment, unsure if he should step back. But the child stopped a few feet away and looked directly at him. His violet eyes were wide, filled with curiosity and something that felt like recognition. He raised his small hand as if signaling Ethan to come closer. The room held its breath. The queen finally spoke, her voice calm but carrying weight that silenced even the most restless delegates. "My son has selected." The words hung in the air and a hush fell over the chamber. Ethan felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. The heir of Xyrian had chosen him, a human. Among thousands of alien beings, he had chosen him. A wave of whispers spread like wildfire. Some were shocked, some were confused, and some, the older and wiser delegates, nodded subtly as if they had expected something extraordinary. The selection of a companion was always significant, but never had it been this unexpected. Humans were rarely present in these gatherings, let alone chosen by the heir himself. The child stepped closer, tilting his head, studying Ethan as if measuring every thought, every possibility. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of destiny pressing upon him. He had traveled light years from Earth, not expecting anything like this. Yet here he was, the focus of attention from one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The queen's eyes softened as she watched the scene unfold. "You have been chosen," she said gently, addressing Ethan. "Not by chance, but by insight. My son has the gift to see the potential in others. He sees it in you." Ethan's mind raced. What did it mean to be chosen? Was he expected to serve, to fight? To learn, the queen seemed to sense his questions before he could ask them. "You will learn," she continued, "but first you must understand. Here on Xyrian we honor curiosity, courage, and loyalty. My son does not choose lightly. He chooses those who can rise above fear, who can think, who can care. He sees in you a possibility that could change both our worlds." Ethan nodded slowly, feeling a strange mix of pride and fear. He was aware that his life was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. The alien child held out his small hand again. Hesitant, Ethan took it. The moment their hands touched, a soft glow spread around the child, shimmering like starlight, filling the room with warmth. It was not magic. Ethan realized it was connection, understanding, recognition. The chamber seemed to hum with energy. The aliens leaned forward, sensing something profound had occurred. A bond had been formed, something older and deeper than words. Ethan felt it too, a thread linking him to the child, fragile yet unbreakable. The queen spoke once more, addressing the entire assembly. "This is not merely a choice of friendship. It is a choice that will shape our future. Let the human witness the ways of Xyrian, and let our world see that understanding is stronger than division." Ethan's thoughts returned to Earth, to the planet he had left behind. He wondered how he would explain this to anyone back home. How could he describe a moment when the air of an alien civilization ran past hundreds of beings and chose him? Yet, in that instant, all doubts vanished. He knew that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. The child led Ethan toward the palace's inner halls, moving with a grace that seemed almost unreal. The walls were alive with flowing colors, holographic stories that danced and shifted, telling the history of Xyrian in ways Ethan could not yet comprehend. Strange creatures flitted through the corridors, some walking on walls, others floating freely. Every step was a lesson, every turn a new wonder. As they walked, the child spoke softly with words that echoed in Ethan's mind. "I chose you," he said. "I do not know why yet. But I know that you can help." Ethan looked down at him, surprised that the child could speak human languages so clearly with no accent. "Help with what?" he asked. The child smiled faintly, a knowing expression that seemed far beyond his years. "Everything, you will see." The queen followed behind them, her presence a silent support. She did not need to explain further. In her heart, she knew that this choice was the beginning of a story that neither human nor alien could have predicted. Outside the palace, the twin suns rose higher, casting long shadows across the gardens below. Birds with translucent wings sang in harmony, and distant mountains glimmered as if welcoming the new bond that had just formed. Ethan felt the weight of the moment. He was no longer just a human diplomat. He was chosen, and with that choice came responsibility, adventure, and the promise of greatness. The first part of his journey on Xyrian had begun. And as he walked beside the alien child, he realized that the galaxy was far larger, more mysterious, and more wonderful than he had ever imagined. Somewhere in the vastness of space, he could feel the stirrings of destiny. And destiny, he knew, had chosen him. The halls of the Xyrian palace were unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Smooth walls shimmered with a gentle glow, lighting themselves in colors that changed as the observers passed. Strange plants floated in air pockets, releasing soft, musical hums whenever they sensed movement. The palace felt alive, as if it had a heartbeat of its own. Ethan followed the alien child, who walked with a lightness that almost made him appear to float. The child's eyes, deep violet and full of curiosity, never left Ethan's face. Ethan could feel the weight of countless gazes from unseen beings, yet none of it mattered. He realized that the child's attention had a power that silenced everything else. "This way," the child said softly, his voice melodic and calm, yet carrying an authority that made Ethan instinctively obey. They passed through corridors that twisted and turned in ways that defied logic. Some passages seemed to fold in on themselves, and yet Ethan never felt lost. The child seemed to know the palace as though it were a part of him. Ethan wondered how such a young being could possess such knowledge, but he kept the thought to himself. Finally, they arrived at a large chamber at the heart of the palace. The ceiling rose high above, vanishing into light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The walls were covered in intricate designs that moved, forming patterns and pictures of past events, battles, and great discoveries. In the center of the room, a pool of crystal-clear water reflected the twin suns outside, and Ethan could see himself mirrored perfectly, yet somehow different, as if he were more than just a human. The child stepped forward and gestured for Ethan to look into the pool. As Ethan bent over, he saw not only his reflection, but visions of places he had never been, moments he could not have imagined. He saw humans and aliens working together, building cities in the sky, exploring strange planets, and discovering knowledge that had been lost for centuries. "You can see it," the child said quietly. "Do you understand?" Ethan shook his head, still trying to grasp what he was seeing. "It's incredible, but how is this possible?" The child's gaze held his. "This is Xyrian. Our minds are connected to the palace. We can share thoughts, visions, and understanding with those we trust. I chose you because I felt a spark. You can see beyond what others see, and that is rare." Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. A spark, trust, recognition, words that seemed simple, yet carried a weight he could not fully measure. He realized that the child was not choosing him for politics, power, or ceremony. The choice was personal, profound, and meaningful. The queen entered the chamber quietly, her flowing robes making no sound. She observed Ethan and the child with a calm but knowing smile. "It is unusual," she said, her voice carrying across the chamber like gentle music, "for my son to select someone in this manner. He is gifted. He sees qualities in others that are hidden even from themselves." Ethan straightened, feeling a mixture of pride and nervousness. I don't know what I did to deserve this," he admitted. "You did nothing," the queen replied. "You were yourself, that was enough." The child smiled faintly, stepping closer to Ethan. "There are many here who are powerful, brilliant, or skilled," he said. "But I could not sense a connection with them. With you, I could." The simplicity of the statement struck Ethan deeply. Connection, that one word seemed to explain everything. He realized that across the vastness of the galaxy, despite all differences in species, language, and culture, there could be understanding. There could be trust. There could be friendship that transcended worlds. For the next hours, the child guided Ethan through lessons unlike any school on Earth. He showed Ethan the basics of Xyrian's language, a combination of sound, color, and thought. Ethan learned to see words as colors and shapes, to understand meaning beyond what the human ear could hear. At first, it was confusing, even overwhelming, but the child's patience was endless. "You must see," the child explained, "that communication is more than words. Thought and intention are powerful. The galaxy has no room for misunderstanding that leads to fear." Ethan practiced, fumbling at first, but gradually the colors and sounds began to make sense. He felt a growing confidence, a sense that he could truly belong here despite being human, and the child's presence made everything easier. There was no judgment, only guidance. After their lessons, they walked to the palace balcony, overlooking the city below. Ethan saw ships of all shapes and sizes moving through the air, carrying goods, passengers, and diplomats from countless worlds. The city was alive with energy, yet the movement was orderly, harmonious, as if every being knew their place and purpose. The child pointed to the horizon. "Out there," he said, "the galaxy is bigger than we can imagine, yet danger exists too. We must be ready." Ethan felt a chill. Danger. He had expected challenges, negotiations, and learning, but not threats beyond imagination. "What kind of danger?" he asked. The child's expression grew serious, rare for him. "Some forces seek power without understanding. They will harm others to gain control. My father and mother and even their advisors know of these dangers, but I see patterns they cannot. That is why I chose you. Together we can prepare." Ethan swallowed hard. He had always believed humans could rise to greatness, but he had never imagined being tested on an interstellar stage. Yet the child's confidence in him stirred a determination he did not know he had. I'll do my best," he said, his voice steady despite the nervousness he felt inside. The child nodded, a small but approving gesture. "That is enough for now. Tomorrow, the real lessons will begin. You will learn not only about Xyrian, but about yourself." Even as the sun set, casting long shadows across the floating gardens below, Ethan felt a strange sense of peace. He was no longer just an envoy from Earth. He was part of something larger, something that could shape the future. And he had been chosen not because he was the strongest or the smartest, but because he could connect, understand, and care. That night, Ethan lay in a room provided for him within the palace. The walls shimmered softly, displaying comforting colors that changed as he breathed. He reflected on the day, the child's choice, the lessons, the visions, and the bond forming between them. He realized that humanity, with all its flaws and strengths, could contribute to something much larger than itself. In the quiet of the night, Ethan felt a presence beside him. The child had come, silent as a shadow, and was looking out the window at the twin moons of Xyrian. "You are thinking too much," the child said softly. "It will come. Do not force it. Just be here and see what is." Ethan nodded, understanding that patience was part of the journey. The galaxy was vast, and there was much to learn, but he felt ready. And with the child beside him, he was not alone. The next morning, the palace stirred with activity. Delegates from across the galaxy moved through the halls, discussing matters of trade, peace, and exploration. But Ethan no longer felt overwhelmed. He walked beside the child with confidence, guided by the knowledge that he had been chosen for a reason. The first formal lesson of the day took place in the Royal Library, a vast chamber filled with floating scrolls, holographic records, and data crystals. The child led Ethan to a desk of light and explained that their task was not simply to learn, but to prepare. "Knowledge is power," the child said, "but wisdom is understanding. You will need both." They studied the histories of countless civilizations, learning how alliances had formed and failed, how wars had begun and ended, and how some species had risen while others had fallen. Ethan was amazed by the depth and breadth of the knowledge, but he also noticed patterns, mistakes repeated, pride and fear causing destruction. "Humans make mistakes too," Ethan admitted. "We have our own failures." "Yes," the child replied, "but your species also has potential. That is why I chose you. You can teach, adapt, and rise. That is rare." Ethan felt a swell of pride and humility at the same time. Here, in a room filled with the wisdom of the galaxy, a child's faith in him seemed more powerful than any authority or accolade he had ever known. The day passed quickly. They practiced communication, explored advanced technology, and even tested strategies for cooperation between species. Every moment was a lesson, not only in knowledge but in understanding, how to see beyond fear, beyond pride, beyond assumptions. As the second sun set, casting the sky in shades of pink and violet, Ethan realized that the child had chosen him not merely to be a companion, but to grow alongside him, to become a partner in shaping the future. The palace was quiet again, yet alive with the hum of life. Ethan felt a sense of belonging he had never known. He was human, yes, but here he was more than that. He was part of something larger, something that could unite worlds. And as the night deepened, Ethan knew that the true journey, the journey of preparation, of understanding, and of courage, had only just begun. The bond between human and air was growing stronger, and together they would face challenges that no one else could. The galaxy had opened its doors, and Ethan had stepped through, ready to embrace the adventure that awaited. The morning sun rose over Xyrian, casting soft golden light across the palace's floating gardens. Ethan stood on the balcony, his eyes taking in the alien city below. Airships glided between towers that shimmered like crystal, and alien creatures of all shapes and sizes moved with elegance through the streets. Today, the child heir had promised something different, a journey beyond the palace, to see the world in a way few humans had. The child appeared silently beside him. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice calm yet filled with energy. Ethan nodded, adjusting the strap of his satchel, which contained some notes and tools for learning. "I think so, but I don't know what to expect." The child smiled faintly, violet eyes gleaming. "Expect nothing. Observe everything. You will learn more by seeing than by guessing." They walked to a waiting hovercraft, a sleek vehicle that seemed to float on air. As they lifted off the palace grounds, Ethan looked down at the city shrinking below. He felt a thrill of excitement mixed with nervousness. Beyond the city, the landscape of Xyrian was unlike anything on Earth. Mountains of glass and stone jutted into the sky, rivers of glowing liquid flowed like veins across the land, and forests of luminous trees stretched as far as the eye could see. "This world, it's beautiful," Ethan whispered. The child nodded. "It is alive, Ethan. Every creature, every plant, every river, they are all connected. Xyrian is not just land and sky. It is a network of life, thought, and energy. To understand it, you must see it, not just look at it." Their hovercraft landed near a vast plain where alien wildlife roamed freely. Some creatures resembled Earth animals, but with added twists, wings, extra limbs, or glowing patterns on their skin. Others were unlike anything Ethan could describe, moving in strange, fluid motions as they grazed on luminous plants. The child led Ethan through the plain, explaining details about the creatures, habits, their role in the ecosystem, and their connection to the energy of the planet. Ethan listened, fascinated, noting how every species seemed to serve a purpose beyond simple survival. It was a lesson in observation, patience, and respect for life. "You see," the child said, pointing to a herd of tall, silver-furred creatures grazing nearby, "strength is not always in the largest or the fastest. Sometimes it is in cooperation, in understanding one another." Ethan nodded, thinking about humans and their own struggles to work together. "On Earth, we often fight for power instead of understanding," he admitted. The child's gaze was steady. "That is why I chose you. I sensed in you a willingness to see beyond what is easy, to see what can be." As they continued their journey, the child guided Ethan to a forest of towering, crystal-like trees. Their branches twisted toward the sky, catching the light in shimmering rainbows. Ethan reached out to touch a trunk, feeling vibrations pass through his fingers, subtle pulses that seemed almost like a heartbeat. "These trees communicate," the child explained. "They share information with one another and with those who listen. Life here speaks in ways your mind must learn to hear." Ethan closed his eyes and concentrated. At first, it was just a faint humming in his mind. But gradually, he began to feel patterns, messages in the vibrations, the warning of nearby predators, the movement of creatures beyond sight, the health of the forest itself. His pulse quickened. He was beginning to understand. Hours passed as they moved through mountains, forests, and rivers of liquid light. Ethan learned to interpret signals in the environment, to sense patterns in the sky and ground. The child was patient, never scolding, only guiding. Ethan felt a growing confidence. Humanity had always relied on ingenuity and curiosity to survive, and now he saw that those traits were exactly what made him valuable in this alien world. As evening approached, they reached the edge of a valley filled with massive, floating stones. Each stone hovered effortlessly, suspended by forces Ethan could not yet understand. The child gestured to one. "We will climb these stones. It is not only physical training but mental. You must trust your senses and judgment." Ethan hesitated. The stones were huge and the drop below dizzying, but the child's calm gaze reassured him. Slowly, he stepped onto the first stone. It held firm. Step by step, he moved, learning to balance, to predict movement, and to remain calm. The child followed effortlessly, yet he occasionally paused to point out subtle details Ethan might have missed. A shift in wind, the movement of a shadow, the sound of hidden creatures. At the top, they looked out over the valley. Ethan gasped. The view was breathtaking. Rivers of light twisted through the landscape below, alien creatures moved like living stars, and distant mountains glowed with a mysterious energy. "See," the child said, "perspective changes everything. From here, threats look smaller, opportunities look larger. Understanding comes from seeing all angles." Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. He realized that humanity, with all its flaws, had the ability to rise in the galaxy. Creativity, courage, and curiosity, these were traits that could make humans shine among the stars. As night fell, they set up a small camp on the largest floating stone. The stars above Zarian were brighter and more numerous than any Ethan had seen from Earth. Nebulas swirled like painted clouds, and distant planets glimmered like jewels. Ethan lay on his back, staring up, feeling both small and infinite at once. The child sat beside him. "Tomorrow you will face your first challenge," he said quietly. "It is not a test of strength, but of mind and heart. You must see, listen, and act as one with this world." Ethan turned to him, curiosity and nerves mixing. "A challenge? What kind of challenge?" The child's violet eyes gleamed with a hint of mischief. "Patience, observation, courage. You will know when the time comes, but remember, you are not alone. I am with you." Sleep came slowly that night, filled with dreams of glowing forests, floating stones, and creatures that spoke in thoughts rather than words. Ethan awoke before dawn, ready to continue the journey. The next morning, they descended into a canyon where the air shimmered with energy. Strange creatures scuttled along walls, their movements quick and precise. The child led Ethan to a series of challenges, a river of liquid crystal to cross, a maze of shifting walls and creatures that tested his courage. Each time, Ethan relied on what he had learned: observation, patience, and intuition. At first, mistakes came. He misjudged distances, misunderstood signals, or froze when creatures approached. But the child guided him, showing how to read the environment, to listen to subtle cues, and to trust his instincts. By the end of the day, Ethan had grown in confidence. He had learned that humans, though fragile compared to many alien species, could adapt, think, and persevere. His ingenuity allowed him to solve problems, and his courage enabled him to face dangers others might flee from. The child watched him closely, his expression proud. You are learning quickly, but the most important lesson is not skill. It is understanding. You must see the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Only then can you act wisely. Ethan nodded, realizing the truth in the words. On Earth, humans often acted out of fear or pride. Here he was learning to act with understanding, to rise above impulses, and to see the bigger picture. As they returned to the palace that evening, Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He had grown, not just in knowledge, but in perspective. Humanity's potential, he realized, was not in raw strength alone, but in curiosity, courage, and the ability to understand and adapt. The child led him to the palace gardens, where the queen awaited. "You have done well today," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Remember that what you learn here will prepare you not only for Xyrian, but for the galaxy beyond. You are part of something larger now." Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had been chosen for a reason. He had been given the chance to prove that humanity could rise to greatness, even among the stars. That night, as he rested, he thought of the vast universe waiting outside the palace walls. He understood that the journey was far from over. Dangers, challenges, and discoveries lay ahead. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready. Not because he was the strongest or the smartest, but because he was willing to learn, to adapt, and to trust. And with the child heir at his side, he knew they could face anything the galaxy would throw at them. The journey had begun, and the galaxy was wide, mysterious, and full of possibilities. Humanity had been chosen, and Ethan was ready to show that humans could rise to greatness, even in the vastness of space. The morning air on Xyrian was crisp, carrying with it a subtle hum of life that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. Ethan awoke to the sounds of distant creatures moving through the palace gardens. The twin sons of Xyrian were already climbing the sky, casting golden light across the floating towers and sparkling rivers below. Today, he was to face a challenge unlike any other, a test of courage, strategy, and understanding, one that could shape the fate of not just him and the child heir, but potentially their worlds. The child appeared at the doorway of Ethan's room, his violet eyes serious for the first time since Ethan had met him. "Today," he said softly, "you will see that knowledge and courage alone are not enough. You must act. You must trust yourself, and you must trust me." Ethan nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness twisting in his stomach. "I understand," he said, though he did not fully know what the challenge would be. They walked to the palace's outer training grounds, a vast area that stretched as far as Ethan could see. The air shimmered with energy, and strange, floating platforms hovered in midair, each moving slightly as if aware of those who approached. In the distance, an array of devices, walls, and obstacles were arranged in patterns that seemed random at first glance. "This is the test of unity," the child explained. "It is not a contest of strength, but of cooperation, intelligence, and instinct. Many have attempted it, even skilled warriors from other species. Few succeed. You must work as one with me and with the environment." Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the words. He had trained for diplomacy, for exploration, for learning, but never for a test like this. Yet looking into the child's eyes, he felt a quiet reassurance. The child believed in him. That alone was enough to steady his nerves. The first part of the challenge required crossing a river of liquid light. The liquid glowed softly, swirling with currents that shifted unpredictably. Ethan could see reflections of the sky and surrounding platforms in its surface, but he knew that one misstep could send him plunging into the depths. The child pointed to a series of floating stones that rose slightly above the river. "Watch the currents," he advised. "Feel their rhythm, then step." Ethan studied the flow carefully. He noticed subtle patterns, the way the light shifted, the movement of tiny creatures beneath the surface. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the first stone. It held firm, then the next. Step by step, he moved, each motion guided by observation and intuition rather than force. The child followed closely, moving with an effortless grace. "Good," he said softly. "You are learning to trust what you see, what you feel, and yourself. That is more important than speed." Once across the river, Ethan faced a maze of shifting walls. The walls moved silently, rearranging themselves as he walked. Some sections formed dead ends, while others opened unexpected paths. The child paused at the entrance. This maze tests observation and strategy. Watch carefully. The walls will respond to your choices, but do not panic. Patience is key. Ethan stepped inside, moving slowly at first, studying the patterns. He noticed subtle differences in the light and texture of the walls. Some walls seemed to pulse faintly when he approached, hinting at safe routes. Others were still, warning him of dead ends. He began to move with confidence, adjusting his path based on what he observed. Hours passed as they navigated the maze. Ethan stumbled a few times, making mistakes, but the child guided him, offering subtle hints and encouragement. Each error was a lesson. By the time they emerged, Ethan felt a sense of triumph he had rarely experienced on Earth. The final stage of the challenge involved the creatures of Zarian themselves. Ethan had observed them before in the wild, but now they moved freely within the training grounds, testing his courage and decision-making. Some were large and imposing, others swift and unpredictable. None were hostile, yet all required careful attention. The child turned to him. These creatures represent forces you cannot control entirely. You must adapt. You must lead with understanding, not fear. Ethan took a deep breath. A massive creature with translucent wings and glowing eyes approached. It hovered, observing him with intelligence that seemed almost human. Ethan remembered the lessons from the plains and forests: observation, patience, intuition. Slowly, he mirrored the creature's movements, softening his body and matching its rhythm. To his surprise, the creature responded, moving in harmony with him. The child's eyes sparkled with approval. Good, you see, cooperation is stronger than force. Understanding is stronger than fear. They moved through the rest of the creatures, each interaction testing different skills: strategy, empathy, courage. Ethan began to see the underlying lesson. The challenge was not about defeating or dominating, but about connecting, learning, and responding thoughtfully. Every decision mattered, and every small act of understanding had a ripple effect. As they reached the final platform, a tall spire overlooking the training grounds, the child turned to Ethan. There is one final task. You must look beyond yourself and see the larger picture. Only then will you succeed fully. Ethan studied the platform and surroundings. From above, he could see the entire training grounds laid out like a map. Currents of energy flowed between obstacles, creatures, and walls, forming patterns that he had missed from ground level. He understood now. The challenge was a test of perspective, of seeing how every part connected. He signaled to the child, guiding him across the final path, carefully coordinating movements with what he had learned. Each step required attention, timing, and trust. When they reached the top of the spire, Ethan looked out over the grounds. Everything fit together: the rivers, the platforms, the walls, the creatures. It was a living puzzle, and they had solved it not with strength, but with understanding. The child smiled, a bright, proud expression. You have done well. You see what few can. You trust, observe, and act with care. That is what makes you valuable. Ethan felt a surge of pride and relief. The challenge had been daunting, yet he had succeeded. Not because he was stronger or faster than any alien, but because he had relied on human qualities: curiosity, intelligence, courage, and adaptability. The queen arrived at the spire, having watched the entire test from a distance. She approached Ethan and the child, her presence commanding yet gentle. Your performance today proves what I have long believed, she said. Humans have potential that extends beyond their home planet. They can rise to greatness if they choose to see, to understand, and to act wisely. Your bond with my son is not only extraordinary, it is a symbol for all of Zarian. Ethan bowed slightly, humbled by her words. Thank you, Your Majesty. I did my best. You did more than your best, the child said. You learned to see, and that is the greatest achievement of all. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the floating gardens below, Ethan reflected on the day. He had faced fear, confusion, and uncertainty, yet he had grown stronger, not in muscle or speed, but in understanding, awareness, and confidence. He realized that humanity's greatest strengths were not physical, but intellectual, emotional, and moral. These qualities could rise to meet any challenge, no matter how alien or vast. The child led Ethan back to the palace, their bond strengthened by the trials of the day. They walked in silence for a while, sharing the quiet energy of mutual respect and understanding. You have changed, the child said finally. Not in body, but in mind. That is why I chose you. You are ready for the next step. Ethan looked at him, a mixture of pride and curiosity in his eyes. Next step, what comes next? The child's gaze turned toward the horizon, where distant stars shimmered. The galaxy is vast. Threats and opportunities await beyond Xyrian. You have learned to see and act here, but soon you will face challenges that test all you know. You will see what humans can truly do. Ethan felt a shiver of anticipation. The test had been hard, but it was only the beginning. Beyond the comfort of the palace and the familiar landscapes of Xyrian, unknown dangers and wonders awaited. And now he knew he was not alone. Humanity's curiosity, courage, and ingenuity had earned him a place among the stars, and he was ready to rise to the challenges ahead. That night, as he rested, Ethan could still feel the energy of the challenge within him. He had faced the unknown and discovered strengths he had never realized. With the child heir at his side, he understood that humans could shine brightly even in the vast, mysterious galaxy. And somewhere in the distance beyond Xyrian, new trials were preparing to test not just him, but all those who believed that courage, understanding, and intelligence could change the course of the future. The galaxy was wide, full of dangers, mysteries, and possibilities. But for the first time, Ethan felt ready, not because he was invincible, but because he was human, and that the child had chosen was enough. The calm of Xyrian's morning was broken by a distant, low hum that resonated through the ground and air. Ethan felt it first, a vibration in his chest, then in the soles of his feet. Something was coming, something powerful. The child heir stood beside him on the palace balcony, his violet eyes scanning the horizon. "It has begun," he said simply. "The threat I sensed is moving toward us." Ethan's heart pounded. He had faced tests and challenges before, but this felt different. This was not a controlled exercise. This was real danger, one that could affect not just Xyrian, but potentially Earth and countless other worlds. The Queen arrived, her presence commanding yet calm. "You have proven yourselves capable," she said to Ethan and the child. "Now you will show the galaxy what courage and understanding can achieve." A massive fleet appeared in the distance, glinting like shards of metal in the sunlight. These were not ships of diplomacy or trade. They were war machines, ancient, relentless, and moving with single-minded purpose. Ethan had read about such fleets in Xyrian's histories, but seeing them in person was different. Their sheer scale and precision were terrifying. The child turned to Ethan. "We must act. Observation, strategy, and courage are all we have. Humanity's ingenuity and adaptability are crucial now. I need you beside me." Ethan nodded, determination replacing fear. "I'm ready. Let's do this." They moved quickly through the palace, gathering allies and resources. Alien diplomats, soldiers, and scholars looked to them for guidance. Ethan realized that the trust the child had placed in him had become a symbol for others. If the heir of Xyrian believed in a human, then perhaps humanity could rise to meet this challenge. The fleet reached Xyrian's skies, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. The palace's defenses activated automatically, energy shields rising and weapon systems preparing. But it was clear, sheer force alone would not defeat this enemy. Strategy, intelligence, and unity were required. Ethan and the child led a daring mission aboard a fast scout vessel. They moved through asteroid fields and the fleet's outer perimeter, observing patterns in enemy movements. Ethan's human intuition, combined with the child's alien insight, allowed them to predict attacks and find weak points in the fleet's formation. "Look there," the child said, pointing to a series of ships that seemed to function as command units. "If we disable them, the rest will lose coordination." Ethan nodded, formulating a plan. "We can use the asteroid field to our advantage. I'll reroute energy pulses to jam their systems while you guide us through the field." They executed the plan with precision. The vessel weaved through the asteroids, narrowly avoiding collisions, while Ethan manipulated the energy pulses, disrupting enemy communications. The child's navigation and foresight kept them ahead of danger. Step by step, they disabled key ships, creating confusion in the fleet. The alien forces below watched in awe. They had never seen a human act with such intelligence, courage, and composure in a real battle. Ethan's creativity, combined with the child's insight, allowed them to neutralize the threat without needless destruction. The fleet's remaining ships, seeing their command units fall, retreated. Victory had been achieved not through raw power, but through understanding, strategy, and trust between two beings from entirely different worlds. Back on the palace balcony, Ethan and the child looked out at the retreating enemy. The queen approached, her expression proud. "You have done more than defend Xyrian," she said. "You have shown what can be accomplished when beings of different worlds work together. This day will be remembered for generations." Ethan felt a mix of relief and pride. Humanity had been underestimated by many, yet in this moment they had risen to greatness. Not through domination, but through intellect, courage, and collaboration. The child turned to him. "You see now why I chose you." Humans have qualities that no other species possesses in the same way: creativity, adaptability, and the courage to act even in uncertainty. Together, we have shown the galaxy the strength of unity. Ethan smiled, feeling a deep bond with the child. "And I've learned that being human can be more powerful than I ever imagined." The queen addressed the gathered assembly, her voice carrying across the palace grounds. "Let this day be a symbol. Let it remind every species that fear and mistrust are not the paths to greatness. Understanding, courage, and cooperation are, and let humanity know that they are not merely visitors among the stars, they are partners in shaping the future." Delegates from all corners of the galaxy nodded in agreement, some bowing in respect. The bond between humans and Xyrians, symbolized by the child and Ethan, had become a beacon of hope. Over the following days, celebrations were held, but more importantly, alliances were strengthened. Humans were invited to study, to advise, and to collaborate with the most advanced species in the galaxy. Ethan realized that what had begun as a personal bond had grown into a bridge between worlds. The child heir continued to guide him, showing more wonders of Xyrian and the galaxy beyond. They explored ancient libraries, studied technologies that humans had never dreamed of, and devised plans to prepare for future threats. Every day, Ethan's confidence and understanding grew. One evening, as they watched the twin suns set over the floating city, the child spoke softly. "Ethan, do you understand why I ran to you that day in the palace?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because you saw something in me." "Potential, courage, curiosity," the child nodded. "Yes, and because I needed someone who could see what I see, who could act when others might hesitate. You are human, yet your mind is open and your heart is strong. That is rare." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. "I will do everything I can to honor that trust." "Good," the child said, a faint smile crossing his lips. "Because our journey is only beginning. Together we can face what comes next. Together we can show the galaxy that courage, understanding, and unity can overcome any challenge." Months passed, and the story of their victory spread across the stars. Humans and Xyrians began joint projects, research, exploration, and cultural exchanges. Ethan found himself teaching other humans how to navigate alien systems, while learning from every species he met. He realized that humanity's adaptability and curiosity made them natural pioneers among the stars. The child heir grew alongside him, not just as a friend, but as a partner in leadership. Together, they had prevented destruction, united species, and demonstrated that the qualities of one human could make a difference on a galactic scale. One day, the queen called them to the palace council. "Your achievements have changed our civilization," she said. "The galaxy will remember this day, not because of battles or conquests, but because of understanding, courage, and the trust between a human and the heir of Xyrian. You have created a legacy." Ethan and the child exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging all they had faced together. Their bond had grown beyond friendship. It was a partnership that symbolized hope, unity, and the potential of cooperation across species. Ethan knew that humans had proven themselves, not just to the aliens of Xyrian, but to themselves. They had risen to challenges that required more than strength. They had shown ingenuity, courage, and heart. That night, as stars filled the sky above Xyrian, Ethan stood beside the child, looking toward the infinite expanse of the galaxy. "We have done much," he said softly, "but I know there is more to come." The child nodded. "Yes, but now you see what humans can do. We will face what comes next together as partners. Your courage and understanding have made you part of something larger than yourself. You are no longer just human. You are a bridge between worlds." Ethan felt a sense of pride unlike anything he had experienced. He had traveled far from Earth, faced challenges beyond imagination, and discovered the strength and potential of his species. Humanity was no longer small or insignificant in the vastness of the galaxy. They had a place, a purpose, and a chance to rise to greatness. And as the twin moons rose above the horizon, casting soft silver light over the palace, Ethan understood that their story was only the beginning. Together with the child heir, he would explore new worlds, face new challenges, and continue to prove that courage, understanding, and human ingenuity could shape the stars. The galaxy was wide, mysterious, and full of possibilities. But humanity had found its place among the stars, and with allies across worlds, it was ready to rise, to explore, to protect, and to shine brightly in the cosmic tapestry. The legacy of a human chosen by an alien child would echo across the stars for generations, a testament to the power of trust, courage, and unity. Ethan looked at the child and smiled. "Let's see what comes next." The child smiled back, violet eyes gleaming. "Together we can face anything." And so, under the twin moons and endless stars, two unlikely friends stood ready, human and heir, bound by trust, courage, and the promise of greatness. The galaxy awaited.